Hoki mai anō ki think tank, ki te kōrero mātou, getting a fair deal for Kiwis in Australia. I tēnei wā, me whai wāhi ki te whai whakautu, hei whakatika I tēnei raru. Kei te marawa ki au, kei te ara tika, e te kaupapa ki tēnei wā.
Well, there has to be high-level diplomacy between the two governments, basically, doesn't there? I mean, that's the starting point. I think if Tony Abbott becomes Prime Minister, we'll be waiting a lot longer. It's a Howard government initiative that he was in support of, so nothing will move fast, I'm afraid.
Realistically, I actually think it's a double-edged sword for John Key, because I can't see it being at the top of his list to actually pressure Julia Gillard into making a change, because if he puts that up, he's basically saying, well, we're going to lose more New Zealand skilled workers to Australia. So from John Key's perspective, what is his incentive to actually even up the score, if you see what I'm saying?
But I think the skilled workers will always find their way to Australia. They'd always have them. It's the cross-section of New Zealand society that Australia takes. And that's, even though it's a difficult situation for politicians, because on the one hand they don't want to be seen to be smoothing the way for people to leave in droves. They're always filming themselves in sports stadiums and saying this is how many people leave under the other government, and that it's not a good look for them to be sitting by as New Zealanders are perceived to get a bad deal over there.
I mean, I can't speak for every single Australian, but as an Australian living in New Zealand, New Zealanders should have the same entitlements as what Australians, you know, have here.
It's also in Australia's interests, I think, about just on the student loan issue. If they have a whole bunch of New Zealand-born kids who've grown up and lived in Australia, and at the end of their schooling face a bit of a dead end where it's very difficult for them to go on and get upskilled and get the skills that would make them valued and higher tax-paying members of Australian society, surely it would be in Australia's interest to actually facilitate them through higher education.
Well, there was a coup for expats living in Victoria recently. The Human Rights and Equality Board basically upheld a discrimination charge against TAFE. So New Zealand TAFE students can now have access to, you know, student loans, but that's only in the state of Victoria. So perhaps, you know, other expatriates living in different states of Australia could, you know, go down that route and hopefully get a bit of change happening in the different states of Australia.
Doesn't that highlight the fact that it takes a breach of human rights to make change, when it should actually be, I agree with what Paul said, something that people should recognise as a future investment? Because you're right, if they don't go on to those higher skill jobs or higher opportunities for learning, well, we know what happens here in New Zealand. It's been a big problem. And that problem will no doubt create itself over the next coming generations. And then what are they going to try and do about it then?
I've always thought there'd be some kind of incredible trigger point for change, and it seemed like the Queensland floods of 2011 were that moment where I think Julia Gillard said after that she would look at the issue of New Zealanders' rights in Australia, but you know, 2 years down the track, the message has gone in the other direction, if anything. Although I noticed that with these floods that have just occurred in Australia, the ex gratia payment for New Zealand citizens who were affected was already in place. So I don't know, will it take some incredibly high-profile case of incredible injustice? But if the Australian mainstream media continue to sort of ignore the situation, then the message isn't really going to get through to the Australian people.
Well, I mean, there is a Māori community leader living on the Gold Coast, and she is actually campaigning the Australian government at present to try and get some change happening there with regards to this issue. So hopefully, you know, people can go and talk to her. One
problem, though, is New Zealanders, and Māori in particular, are invisible politically in Australia because they can't vote, because you have to be a citizen to vote. And the Māori take-up rate of Australian citizenship is 22%. But it will be dropping massively since 2001. It'll be probably less than 20% now. And for the New Zealand-born overall, it's also less than 40%. So there are no votes in doing any favours for New Zealanders, unfortunately. That's the sad reality.
Okay, so there's no leverage. So to just sort of sum up a bit, there's no doubt requiring political solutions, but to build the political agenda, particularly in Australia, we have to build brand Kiwi as a go-forward, supportive, contributing part of the Australian story. I don't think, as a group, we've been as good as we could in demonstrating that. You then have to look at, of course, the other side of that, and we now know why the Warriors can't win. The Aussies are all on steroids, you see, so which is problematic, because particularly if you're playing against cheats. So the thing, so the thing I'm just trying to say is, you know, these underlying currents are quite important in terms of the relationship. So we've got to build a strong case in the public mind, and to do that, a good brand Kiwi. Contributing to Australia's wealth and capacity, I think it's very important. I think we're very poor at advancing our interests on what we actually do achieve. And also, they've got this blinking, there's still the white Australia thing that runs deep in them. And so racism up there is huge. So when you get the Pacific Island communities arriving at the same time too, this upsets them immensely, and they're all seen as Maori, they're all seen as Māori, right? But the Pacific Islands. So there's a lot of miscommunication going on. I think we'll get there. We're also going to have to ramp up the acknowledgement of what is earned from Australian investments here, which is quite significant. So they mine us on a whole bunch of fronts, okay? And so there's this reciprocity that's not working. It's not working. And I won't blame you for it, of course, Solina. But anyway, it's been good having you on the panel. Ko pau tua ki te rawiki. He mihi ana ki au koutou, I tatu mai I te rānei, tēnā koutou I a koutou kōrero. Mā te wānangi te kōrero, ka puta nā hua kei te iwi. Ka hoki mai mātou I te rawiki, me tētahi atu kaupapa, he wānanga mā tātou, nuhoro mai. A te rawiki, ka whai rongo a mātou I te take, oi, risk youth, nā te rawa.
It's the potential for riots. We've seen those in the UK when we've got a disenfranchised youth sector with nothing to do, no employment, no education, no training. What else is there to do?
Mea mea, he te hia koe, ki te tuku kōrero mo I nei kaupapa, tuku unu mai. Ka taia hoki te piri mai ki te whārangi upurangi Facebook, Think Tank, TV3. Ka taia hoki te mātakitaki I tēnei huataka anō, me te whānuitanga o ngā kōrero mō tēnei kaupapa ki runga I a TV3 On Demand.
He mea tautoko nā te maanga. Hei pāho.